Hello, hello. I am Matt from Path, formerly of Dig, and I am, I think kind of one thing that we've taken at Path is recruiting is the role of everyone. We have our head of culture, who's incredible, Leah in the back of the room, who's leading HR and recruiting for us. But kind of something that everyone in the company takes a hold of is recruiting. And my DNA in recruiting got started in my fraternity. I went to University of Arizona and was in a Jewish fraternity, and we could only recruit Jews on campus. And so there was only like a small subset of people. We wanted the really cool ones that like pulled beautiful girls. And so it was a really small subset that we had to work with. And so we got really good at kind of sourcing and pretty much stalking young Jewish boys on campus and convincing them to join my fraternity against their will. And so it's lovely ladies being stalked in this photo, as you can see. But so one thing that I think is incredibly important is, using all the resources from Quora to GitHub to LinkedIn and figuring out, okay, how am I going to get information on this person and get in front of them? And instead of having, necessarily a recruiter or sourcer, and we work with a lot of contract outside people that are always, sourcing for us, but it's most effective when our CEO is sending out a message saying like, hey, let's talk, let's have a conversation, being very casual. The next step is getting them through the door. How are you going to get them in the door? In college, it was a lot like this, and we don't do the women thing anymore, but definitely just cut her out of the picture. It's more the beer thing that at Path is incredibly important for all of our recruiting. So we'll have our CEO reach out to a candidate. One of the things that I heard in the last panel was looking someone up on LinkedIn and then reaching out on Facebook. So we'll have Dave or myself or someone on the team reach out on Facebook, say, hey, and not necessarily saying like, hey, are you really interested in Path? Because they obviously haven't applied yet. They're not necessarily really interested in Path. But just saying, hey, we're up to cool stuff. You're really smart. We've stalked you. Don't say we've stalked you. We've read about you on the internet and are very impressed with your skills. And say, hey, would you like to come in for a casual beer? And if we can get someone to come in for a casual beer, casual drink, the success rate is much, much higher, and we're able to see and kind of get people in the door, and that's like 90% of the battle. Next thing is, how can you really tell if someone is A-player talent? We've seen a lot of people at Path and at Dig where they just have incredible resumes, and you're just like, wow, this guy, he worked at NASA, and then he built a rocket ship, and then he like started Google, and you're like, wow, we gotta hire this guy. And then, at Dig we did a lot of like whiteboarding problems and brain teasers, and that shit doesn't work. Like, at least for, the type of engineers that we're looking to recruit. So, a big trend in the Valley right now is pair programming. Square is a company where 100% of the engineers are pair programming, so it's like one person on one person coding all day, and like talking through every single line of code with the person behind them and like switching. And we don't do that fundamentally at Path as part of our day-to-day at all. But it is the most integral thing that we do as part of our interview process. So we produce an iPhone app that loads in photos, takes photos. So for every candidate that we bring in for iOS, we sit them in front of a computer for a good hour and a half, 2 hours with one of our iOS engineers behind them and say, okay, here's a blank iPhone app. Pull in the Flickr API and pull in some photos, create a feed, and pretty much create a Path-like app in the next hour and a half, 2 hours. And it's an impossible task to actually finish that and actually complete that. But we're able to learn by the questions they ask how excellent and how smart they are and how fast they learn as an engineer. This has been the absolute best thing for our recruiting process, and it's been so incredible. And I actually thought it would piss off engineers, like, oh, I have to come in and like 2 hours pair programming, it's a pain in the ass, but we found that engineers love it. They're like really excited to go in there and actually display their skills. We have a guy in our team now from Apple. He was on the iOS team, and he's like, I've gone on so many interviews where no one has ever put me in front of a computer and asked me to write code, and that's what I'm good at. That's what you're hiring me for. Why don't I do this at every interview? And so we do it for every single type of engineering interview. And for non-engineers, we do assignments. So if someone's applying for a user relations role, say like, hey, try rewriting our FAQ or doing things like this. I'm talking to a Stanford business student right now who's interested in a role, and I said, okay, build out a user model based off some data that I'm giving you, and then that's your homework assignment, and then we'll see you and bring you in for more people. Pair programming, guy pairing with his cat. I don't know if you can tell from that photo. So, last thing I want to talk about is compensation. One thing that we had a problem with at Dig was we would have engineering managers who made a certain amount and had been doing it for a while and very senior, and they were great managers and either directors of engineering, VPs of engineering, whoever that person is in the organization. And you would find this 10x engineer that can just like pound out everything, and you know that he's extremely meaningful for everything that you're trying to accomplish in your organization. And he'll command a salary that is, 50%, 40%, 30% higher than your highest paid engineering manager. And at Dig, we refused to pay that, and we lost a lot of talent as a result of that. And something that you have to do when you have that 10x engineer, like, some people say we're in a bubble right now, but there's, it's really fucking hard to convince people to join your company and get top-notch engineers. If you find that 10x engineer, like, be willing to compensate them, like, through whatever it is. But obviously, beyond compensation, there's also this approach of making them feel like they're part of a movement and kind of getting them engaged. Something that we talk about at Path is this mafia concept in the Valley. So a lot of people are, talking about the PayPal mafia, and now there's like this Facebook mafia forming. And so for every person that we interview and bring on, like, we feel like we're starting a mafia. We're 14 people, pretty much all engineers, and every person we bring on, we want to be very entrepreneurial and learn from us and kind of want to teach them everything that there is to know, and if they want to meet investors and things like that, we offer that. And we tell them that during the recruiting process, and it's absolutely very, very valuable. So, that's my 5-minute shtick.